Comparison syndrome. Comparison syndrome kills more health and fitness journeys and business aspirations than nearly any other thing. There's a reason for this, because it's good people question their process because they're looking at other people's outcomes who are in entirely different stages of their journey. So comparison syndrome is something that comes up a lot. I work with a number of health and fitness coaches, but also over the years in helping people transform their health and wellness, you'll see that especially in our society that uses social media and there's always things online to look at and external reference points outside of ourselves, we begin to feel bad about our own progress. And this video isn't to say that you shouldn't work hard or that you shouldn't try or that you shouldn't have any sort of metrics to assess progress. It's that looking externally and then feeling as though we're behind as a result of someone else's finished product or what they're posting online can be detrimental in terms of our own progress. And it creates a vicious cycle in a health and fitness journey. But also if you're someone who's aspiring to accomplish anything great, that could be an athletic pursuit, it could be building a business, or just really anything, even from an art music perspective, looking at someone else's finished product versus what you are doing right now in your journey is going to mess with your head. So there's a few things I want to talk to you about today in a story that I use to help reframe this for my clients and anyone who's trying to accomplish anything great. So I want you to imagine a scenario where you have your grandma's recipe for, let's say it's chocolate chip cookies. This could be cake. It could be really anything, any recipe, anything that is food related that requires having a set number of raw ingredients. You have to have a certain oven temperature. You have to have certain conditions and certain tools and utensils available for you to actually make this recipe and produce the outcome that we want, which is, in this case, let's say it's chocolate chip cookies. Now, there's a lot of different types of cookies, right? There's oatmeal raisin cookies, there's chocolate chip cookies, there's white chocolate macadamia nut cookies, sugar cookies, snickerdoodle cookies, right? Lots of different types of cookies. And that's like people who have different goals, visions, aspirations, and dreams. Now, in this case, let's say you're someone who really wants to make a great chocolate chip cookie. There's going to be certain things that we really need to nail down. We have to have our oven temperature. We're going to preheat the oven to a certain temperature. We know we need to let it cook. We know we need raw ingredients and mixing bowls and things to get the cookies to where they need to be in terms of our raw ingredients before they ever enter the oven. Now, what a lot of people will do is as they're getting their raw ingredients together, they're following a recipe. It's actually a pretty proven process in terms of what they need to do. So in a health and fitness journey, for example, we know that we need to exercise and strength train. We know that we need to eat healthier foods. There's a lot of different ways to accomplish a goal of weight loss or building muscle, but there's certain recipes that may be proven and get you there in the safest, most effective, fastest way. So for example, you guys know I'm a big proponent of resistance training. People obviously need to increase their steps and non-exercise physical activity. We need to get good sleep. That's part of the recipe of getting healthy and achieving a fitness goal. Now, when we look at these external reference points and fall victim to comparison syndrome, what we begin to do is question if our own recipe is actually working. Especially, let's say you have a proven recipe from a health and fitness coach, but you're constantly scrolling social media and you're looking outside of yourself at these external points of comparison. And instead of validation, you're feeling discouragement. And the reason this is dangerous is because it can cause you to begin to self-sabotage your own behaviors and the habits that are actually bringing you closer to your goals in the first place. So back to our cookie analogy, that would be the equivalent of seeing someone with a completed plate or tray of cookies. They take a beautiful photo in their home, in their kitchen, they post it online, and you're like, man, their cookies turned out so great. I'm not that far along yet. I haven't even finished my first batch of cookies, because you're in a different chapter in the journey entirely. Maybe this person started baking cookies at a much younger age, or who knows, you don't even know the whole backstory. Maybe they went to a bakery and just bought the cookies. Maybe someone else gave them the cookies. Maybe that's actually a stock photo of cookies and they didn't even make it in the first place and they didn't even buy the cookies. We don't necessarily know that. And there's some things that are not completely truthful or forthright on social media. It's hard to discern between things that are true and factual and real versus things that are manufactured to gain vanity metrics like likes, follows, comments, shares versus the truth. And this has become even worse with things like AI, and even in the health and fitness industry, things like Photoshop have been an issue for a really long time, where we're comparing ourselves to someone else's progress photo, but it could have been edited, tweaked, or adjusted or altered to manufacture and curate a certain image or outcome. Because what does that do for that person? It kind of elevates their status, right? So now you're comparing yourself to something that's been kind of artificially curated and tweaked after the fact. So here you are at home, you're working hard on your recipe. Again, let's say it's cookies. You've got the raw ingredients down, you've got the oven preheated, it finally got to the right temperature. You put your tray of cookies in the oven. Now, what a lot of people do when they start to seek out these external reference points and points of comparison, and they're comparing to figures on social media and looking at other people's chocolate chip cookies, they think, oh, maybe I need to change my oven temperature. Maybe that will speed this up, right? So we think we're going to crank the oven higher. And so what people do is maybe they restrict more calories or they add more exercise, thinking more is better. Now, if you're not exercising at all, certainly more exercise is going to be a better thing. But let's say you're already training 5 days a week, you may not actually need more training on top of that to achieve the goal that you have. Now, instead, now maybe we're just compromising your recovery and leading to certain negative adaptations that we don't even necessarily want or need. So now that you're beginning to question and doubt your own recipe, you're cranking the temperature, or you're thinking, maybe I need to pull these cookies out early. Maybe you're even crazy enough, you take your cookies out of the oven and you put them in the microwave because you think the microwave is going to cook things faster. But all you're doing, whether it's increasing that oven temperature, whether it's trying to throw your cookies in the microwave to take a shortcut for this process, you actually make the path longer to get to the outcome that you're seeking. This is why comparison syndrome is so dangerous, especially in a society where we have people who are kind of artificially curating these social media pages to make themselves look better or to sell a given product or service. And there's so many good people who are trying hard who then feel bad as a result of that. And this is why we need to pay attention to our own habits, our own standards and behaviors that we're engaging in every single day. And also, this is why it's so powerful to have a coach or mentor if you do have any type of goal. So I was speaking with a client of mine recently. She's actually very far along for her age in terms of building her health and fitness business. She's a women's health coach, works with a lot of women related to their nutrition, fitness, but also mindset and relationship with food. And she's someone who's pretty far along, especially given recently graduated college. She was previously an assistant coach for another company and had experience in the industry, but had never run her own business before. And naturally, as a 20-something-year-old, she uses social media. And so recently, she's had a hard time with, feeling bad about her own sort of progress, or feeling like she's not as far along as maybe she should be or wants to be. And the only reason that that's happening is really because we have this external reference point and source of comparison versus measuring backward at how far she's come and where she's at relative to her age. And even if we were to use a realistic point of comparison, I've been very honest with her. I'm like, hey, at your age, you're actually even further along than I was in this industry. This was long before I'd written a book or built a company or had clients that we serve around the world. So this was at a stage in my journey where if we're actually looking at realistic mile markers, she's technically further along than a lot of people would be at this stage in her career. And the same thing is true of a fat loss journey or building muscle. But I'm just using the entrepreneurial example, the business example, because I think a lot of people can understand that outside of just a health and wellness conversation. So she's someone who felt behind or felt as if she's not doing as well as she should. And so what does that do? That begins to impact your ability to execute on a day-to-day basis, because you're starting to think, maybe am I not doing the right thing? Or should my cookies be out of the oven already? Should I have this beautiful picture of this plated dessert that I can post on my social media? And so when we begin comparing these things, and she may not even have the same goals as some of the people that are posting a certain lifestyle or a certain curated sort of appearance in terms of their business. And we don't even really know all of the details, right? Like you don't have access to someone's tax return. You don't have access to someone's payment process, or you don't know what their relationship is like with their clients. So there's something to be said for social proof and testimonials and case studies, because I think that's the best insight that we have into someone's business, is to actually see, okay, what is their relationship like with their clients, especially a service-based business. But outside of that, we really need to focus internally in terms of what we can control and the things that we can do to build trust with ourselves throughout this process. The way that we do that is just by keeping the small promises. So for her, in terms of following this recipe, if she's gone and went and purchased the correct ingredients, she has her oven set to a good temperature that is well known for being able to create the baked goods that we're trying to make. And now we just need to let time do its thing. This is where people talk about the idea of, you're taking deliberate action in the short term, but you have to be patient over a longer time horizon, or the idea of basically aggressive patience. I think that's credited to Andy Frisella. But if you look at this in a longer time horizon, right, you can have all of these little things worked out in the short term, but if you're not taking the time and being patient and allowing your work to unfold in front of you, you're naturally going to feel bad about yourself. And then when you feel bad about yourself, right, then maybe we don't feel like investing the same amount of energy or effort in our business, because our greatest concern and our greatest fear is maybe this isn't going to work out. How do I know for certain that I'm going to get to a place where if I do all this hard work and I put all this time in, that I'm going to arrive at this destination that I'm seeing on social media? And what's scary is you don't even necessarily know if that person has achieved that true destination, right? Or are they just curating their page to make it look that way? And as someone who's been in the health and fitness industry for 18 years and started before social media was really a big thing or a big influence on behavior and people's decisions around investing with a health and fitness coach, or if you were a health and fitness coach and you had a business, you were really doing a lot of things at the local grassroots level. Even if you were online, maybe you used some forums, or Facebook eventually emerged, but there was no Instagram, there was no TikTok. This makes me sound old, I know, but I'm very fortunate that I was able to start at a time when those external reference points were not as readily available. Now, there's a blessing and a curse to that. It was a little bit harder to find information, right? I didn't have the same tools at my fingertips. Like AI certainly wasn't a thing. Certain things that are available online or certain softwares were not available. So the industry has definitely grown in many ways. And the same thing is true. Like we have new health and fitness research, right? And we also have more clinical experience collectively as an industry to be able to help people with health, wellness, fat loss, muscle building, etc. But in this situation, in my conversation with her, what this really led to was for me, a level of appreciation for not having to deal with that when I first started out, and being able to just see real things in real life. If someone was a business owner and they were successful, you could tell, but it was limited to your local sort of radius or your local zip code or what you could see. There wasn't really a lot of this online. Maybe eventually with like Facebook, it happened. And then later on Instagram. And obviously years after that, TikTok then became a thing, and YouTube became much more popular during this time when people had different vlogs or they were documenting their lifestyle and building businesses. I think that became a lot more common after I'd gotten started in the industry, working both in person and online. So I'm fortunate in that I didn't necessarily have to deal with the same amount of noise. There's a lot of noise right now for people who are trying to diet and get healthy for the first time, but there's also a lot of noise for business owners because they see so many different perceived potential ways to achieve this outcome. There's also a lot of people who are flashing certain lifestyles or things that aren't necessarily real, right? It's very, very common nowadays that people will curate that image on social media, even if it's not necessarily what they're experiencing in real life. And the only way you can really tell is if you're someone who's been in the industry for a long time, like I have, I can see that from like a mile away. And also the industry is smaller than it may appear. And so you have a general idea through relationships, also what's going on kind of behind the scenes. And a lot of those people don't last, right? There's higher turnover because there's less truth behind what they're doing. So most people have been in the industry for a long time and have a decent amount of staying power, ideally have been doing things the right way, right? So there may be some exceptions to that rule, but that's how I've seen things play out over time. So lessons to be learned from this episode. Comparison syndrome is dangerous because it takes our focus off of our own day-to-day behavior, habits, routines, and rituals that are driving the results that we're trying to achieve. It takes our focus off of our own process, makes us question that process. And then now we're trying to basically speed up what we're doing. When time has to do its thing, there needs to be time for if you have never heard of the compound effect, right? It's a book by Darren Hardy, basically talks about the idea of combining our time and our efforts, and you allow that to kind of slow cook in the background. That's going to move us closer to a health and fitness goal or anything worthwhile when it comes to your business. So when I speak with coaches or even clients in their transformation and they're feeling discouraged, a lot of times it's because they're looking at these people on social media, feeling bad about themselves, and then questioning their recipe or their process. Meanwhile, if you were to be in the kitchen with them, the cookies smell pretty good. They look pretty good. Things are progressing as they should be. Maybe the cookies are starting to take shape and get a little golden brown, and you can actually see the chocolate melting in the oven. And there's actually a lot of signs of visible progress. But because we are so focused on these people outside of ourselves, it's making us feel bad and question, our own progress. So this isn't to say that you're never going to look up from your own journey and see what other people are doing around you. That's unrealistic. But in today's day and age, and as I'm recording this video in 2025, we're certainly inundated with so much noise around other people's progress and their journeys. And while there are some people who do a very good job of sharing this in a genuine and authentic way that is encouraging to other people, there's also a lot of people who are sharing their journey in a way just to elevate their own status so that people perceive them in a different way, put them on a pedestal, and basically worship their success. I don't think that's beneficial for anyone, nor does it help someone like the coach that we talked about in terms of her own journey and struggles in trying to become a successful business owner, right? And real things in real business take time. And for someone to be in their early 20s and already have an established business with a pretty full roster of clients, being able to take care of herself, not working for someone else, learning all of these skills, she should actually feel good about what she's doing, not someone who should be beating herself up because of everything that's going on around her. And regardless of the Instagram outcomes and what we're seeing on social media, when you follow that recipe and you actually are showing up day to day and doing the actual work inside of your business, even through the ups and downs, you are building skills and building character traits that are allowing you to become the person that you're meant to be. You are literally forging this new identity as a result of the behaviors that you're engaged in. And you have skill sets and character traits and a relationship with yourself that no one can really take away from you. And so why this is so important is because when we get hyperfixated on certain metrics like scale weight, for example, or for business owners, the dollars processed in a Stripe account or your monthly recurring revenue, when we're looking at those end outcomes, we have to understand that those are lagging indicators. Those indicators are not always perfect, and there will be ups and downs to them. People gain weight on the scale if they drink more water before bed or have more sodium or a late meal. Your business may fluctuate through seasons where some months maybe you have more revenue because you collected more paid in fulls. Other times, maybe you're getting more payment plans. There are natural ebbs and flows and seasons and cycles to everything that we do. And so if you're only fixated on the end outcome and you're not necessarily focused on the day-to-day items you can control, you're kind of taking your eyes off the ball, and that can put you in a vulnerable position. So first and foremost, understand that by doing anything great or anything hard or anything challenging, you are building this new relationship with yourself, but also developing character traits and things that people can't take from you, right? Money can go away. People on social media can certainly go away. Instagram accounts can go away, but these skills you develop, you can transfer to other areas of your life. And that's amazing. So just like the person who's following that recipe to make the chocolate chip cookies, well, the more that that person is baking, they're probably going to be able to transfer those skills to making other things aside from just the chocolate chip cookies that we talked about today. So I appreciate you guys. If you enjoyed this episode and you think someone else would benefit, or they're having a really hard time with comparison syndrome, or they're looking at other people's progress and they're not feeling good about themselves and they're trying to rush or look for certain ways to shortcut this process, please share this episode with them. If this resonated with you, or if it's something you've ever struggled with, please comment. If you're watching on YouTube, you can drop a comment below the video, give it a thumbs up to help the algorithm, and make sure you're subscribed so you never miss an episode. If you're on audio, you can leave a 5-star rating and review on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. If this entertained you, if it changed your perspective, if you enjoyed the analogy or story today, or if you can relate to the person that I talked about in her journey in building a business, or if you relate from the perspective of trying to get healthy and fit for the first time, please leave a written review, and 5-star ratings go a long way to supporting the work that my team and I do. do here. As always, you can always tag me on social media. I'm at Sam Miller Science. So if you share an episode in your stories, I always try to connect with you guys and learn more about what you want to hear about. I know that this comparison trap is something that so many people fall victim to, and it can lead to feeling like you're spinning your wheels or you get really down on yourself, when in reality, that comparison sometimes is against an unrealistic metric or milestone that someone else has just kind of curated to make themselves feel better about themselves. But that's usually short-lived. So if you're doing it the right way, understand that that has staying power. You should feel good about that, even though you may be temporarily discouraged when looking at these things. And understand if someone's making you feel bad about yourself on social media, you may need to consider unfollowing that person for a period of time and really focus on yourself and the people around you that are supporting you and making you feel better. Ideally, videos like this that are actually helping you to stay on track and make the progress that you want to make in your journey. Thanks so much, guys. I'll talk to you in the next show.